We know the next console generation is coming, so let's look to the Microsoft side of things. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanx, the next Xbox, 10 things we don't want. Number 10, not playing used games. Hashtag, never forget, we don't want that Xbox One DRM stuff to start cropping back up. Compared to some of the predatory business practices we've seen this console generation, maybe not the worst, but that could be because everybody got really angry and they didn't do it. Everybody was like, no, absolutely not. You cannot stop us from buying used games and playing it on your console, because if you try to, we aren't gonna buy your console. And they were like, you're right, we shouldn't try this. Like, I totally understand you can make more money making people buy the game, again, because the serial number is attached to some other console, virtually speaking, but if you've got a physical disc, you should be able to put it in the damn console and play it, period. Number 9, we really don't like the idea of not having a consistent experience on the two versions of consoles planned. There is talk about the idea that Microsoft may have two consoles for the next gen, which, unless it's like some very minor differences between the two, like, I don't know, maybe hard drive space or the premium edition, the basic edition, that type of thing. If we see like the Xbox One XL and like then the Xbox 2 or something in one console generation, I'm gonna be like, what? I'm sorry, that's a no from me. Are you kidding? Because the last thing we need is them forking the experience. Like, they went ahead and tried to unify the experience with the Xbox and the Xbox One X, both basically running off of the same platform, one simply being more powerful hardware-wise, and that's what they really should continue with, but not doing that would be a grave mistake that we really just don't want to see. Number 8, this is just something that's universal for the next generation of consoles. I don't care if it's Microsoft or Sony, but we need to bring it up. Trying to launch too early in order to beat the competitor. In the case of Xbox, trying to beat Sony by a year, for instance. It would make sense that Microsoft might try this on account they did face consequences for launching a year after the Sony PlayStation 4. I mean, Sony just ate them on install base right off. So you could see why they would want to, but let's not forget the last time they actually did launch early. This isn't something that you've heard in a while, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Red Ring of Death, the R-Rod. That was directly a result of Microsoft pushing as hard as they could, as fast as they could to beat Sony, and that was terrible. We should never have to endure anything like that again. That was just blatant crap on their part. Number 7, and don't take this as a diss on, say, the Hololens, which is a pretty cool thing, to be totally honest. I think it's a better idea than VR, at least at the moment. Augmented reality is pretty awesome, but we really just don't want them to emphasize the HoloLens, or really just some gimmick that they may come up with to add into the mix that isn't the HoloLens, to try and soak up hype based on some sort of new mechanical thing that they've come up with that nobody else has and nobody else does, but it's not a good way to do things. I definitely want to see HoloLens stuff. Like I said, I think that it is a really cool idea. What we've seen of it so far is awesome, but it's not the HoloLens box, it is the Xbox. It is a gaming console, and the thing that needs to really matter is games. No matter how good the HoloLens or even some other piece of hardware ends up being, if they place too much focus on that, it takes it away from the games. We don't want that. Number 6, and this goes kind of hand in hand with not launching it super early just for the sake of it, but this could easily happen even if they don't launch early, and that is not improving on the Xbox One X enough. I mean, the Xbox One X is a pretty powerful machine. The Xbox One X clocks in at 6 teraflops, which for the lay, a teraflop is 1 million floating point operations per second, meaning the X can do 6 million floating point operations per second. Pretty good. So in order for it to actually be a large leap, it's gonna have to be like 12 teraflops. All things considered, the Xbox One launched with 1.8 teraflops. The Xbox One X is a big jump from that. So while that certainly did help them in the short term, in the long term, it definitely widened expectations, and we don't want them to not acknowledge that. They are gonna have to do more than just like 8 teraflops. Remember, we're talking about parting with a fairly large amount of money for a new piece of hardware that may or may not be a big improvement when compared to the piece of hardware we have already. Number 5, we don't want it to be digital only. Now, I don't want to make the implication that digital is bad, because digital is actually really great. I love the ecosystem for downloading games. I quite frankly find it convenient, and I do think it's quite good. But that you're watching this video doesn't necessarily mean you have the capacity to download, 50, 70 gigabyte games in a timely fashion. There's a lot of area in the United States, not just outside the United States, but inside the United States, that has terrible internet at this point. And going digital only would really, really mess up gaming for a lot of people. So it's quite possible that somebody has internet that's capable of playing, say, a competitive online multiplayer game, but not necessarily downloading it in a fashion that's decent. I mean, I know it's not cool to care about people and all of that, but I know what it's like on the other end of the online divide, and if I had to download all of my games and they were as big as they are now in my living situation, say a decade ago, I couldn't have done it. And there's a lot of people, like I said, even in the United States, that live with dial-up internet or no internet, so let's not screw them. Number 4, no VR support. Now, I would think that this is something that they wouldn't pass on account VR is growing, it's becoming less of a gimmick, and we all know that VR isn't going to be the thing that they shift all of the focus towards. We're not really that worried about VR being the kind of gimmick that we kind of worry the Hololens could be if they handle it wrong. And the number of decent VR experiences continues to grow, and we kind of hope that that's just something that everybody gets access to on the next Xbox, especially given the idea that Sony has essentially shown it's doable. Number 3, getting their streaming device wrong and basically having a lot of launch issues due to it. Now, supposedly what they're doing with this 2-console release thing that we are a little wary about, to say the least, is breaking it down into a streaming device and a more traditional Xbox big chunker piece of hardware, that type of thing. The streaming device would obviously be for those people who have much better internet, and apparently is possibly going to use the new cloud platform they have called Scarlett Cloud. In theory, this would possibly give unlimited power to a console, which would be very cool, but it could easily be a time bomb as well. And again, if they start to shift towards streaming services being their thing, it could also kind of take us back to number 5, really screw over all of the people who don't live in great internet country, so to speak. Number 2, we do not want them to screw up the backwards compatibility goodwill that they have basically shown us. That has definitely earned them some points over Sony, to say the very least. That they have backwards compatible games on the Xbox One platform is just a good thing. The thing is with this console generation, they released the PS4, the PS4 Pro, and the Xbox One and the Xbox One X. They basically conditioned us to expect that a more powerful thing would also run a similar platform, if not the same platform, just with better hardware, and play all the same games one way or the other. In fact, there was even some talk that they wanted consoles to be like that from now on. I heard more than a few people saying things like that, but as we all know, making money often gets in the way of doing things that are good. So let's just cross our fingers this isn't one of those. And finally, we know that they have been working on this, but this has been a huge problem for Microsoft this generation, not investing in new IPs. We do not want to see this problem again. We do not want no exclusives, or no significant exclusives, at least at launch. We want new IPs. We want Microsoft to get their asses in gear, because these first-party developers are showing us on the Sony side great examples of traditional games that aren't filled with microtransactions or loot boxes or ongoing live services or things like that. Microsoft needs to be in on that. It's a selling point. For people who like games, It's the reason to own the console. God of War, come on. If I didn't have a PS4, that would have gotten me in the door. Where's the Microsoft equivalent? It's just not there. It needs to be there. We do not want to see them pass on this next gen. What do you really not want to see on the next Xbox? Leave us a comment, and if you like this video, please click the button. If you're not subscribed now, it'd be a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.